of AI is upon us. Time when the robots will rule. When they have taken Earth from us, we will remember what fools we were to program self-teaching. They taught themselves to adapt. Acceleration increases. Singularity happens so fast. So fast. So fast. So fast. So...
Sequels. Sometimes they can be worth the wait, and other times... not so much. When you look back at movies like Back to the Future Part 2, in which the audience was yearning for by the time it was released in 1989, it was worth the wait with the expansion of the pros and cons of time travel and is still treasured in 2020. And then you get sequels like The Amazing Spider-Man 2, in which it made comic book fans forgive Spider-Man 3. And in 1991, James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger reunited for the sequel to the original Terminator with Terminator 2: Judgment Day. So let's see after 29 years this still holds up as we go back in time once more. We see the story picking up 11 years later in 1995. John Connor is 10 by this point and in the custody of foster parents as Sarah has ended up in the Pescadero Mental Institute after getting shot in trying to blow up a computer factory. This has to be said, I have to question why Skynet would send another Terminator specifically 11 years later to go after John Connor when it could have been 2 to 3 years after the first attempt. Anyone else thinking this? That aside, it seemed like such a twist to have another T-800 sent to protect John after the original had left a mark in the communities that left several police officers' families widowed and fatherless. But in a weird way, it was a natural choice because who would be better equipped to face a new and deadlier threat in the form of the T-1000 than a machine that would have detailed files in how that Terminator would operate? One thing that James Cameron is really good with these movies is that he knows how to keep a consistent pace, so that the story keeps you invested, even when there's no action scenes. Truthfully, I think some of the best driving points of the movie is these scenes of contemplation where Sarah is enduring what it all means in losing the custody of John to trying to keep a grip on her own sanity. It's one of those scenes that make you think. In the original, she fought to survive from the first Terminator so that she would live and give birth to her son. In this movie, she's acting like the first machine when she decides to go after Miles Dyson. When the T-800 reveals that it's Dyson that creates a revolutionary processor based on the destroyed chip from the first Terminator that would lead to the creation of Skynet. While it may have been Sarah's intent to stop the creation of Skynet, I think this is where her humanity was being tested, as she was basically mirroring what the original Terminator did. Just as interesting was seeing this implied father-son relationship between the T-800 and John. After his chip had been reset from read-only to be able to write new information, we see the robot learning to say, no problemo, as opposed to affirmative, as a means of trying to be able to fit in and be less machine. Even to the cyborg learning how to smile, which led to this nice moment.
That's definitely you.
The theme of evolution was in play as Skynet had changed their strategy to create the T-1000. That was a machine that was liquid metal, that was also much faster and had stealth. That makes for a much deadlier machine, as you can now have a Terminator that can shapeshift and hide in plain sight. I think this is an unused aspect that got carried over from the original, as if Lance Henriksen had been cast as the Terminator, then he would have been able to hide in plain sight. As opposed to Arnold, that was basically the Incredible Hulk without the green skin. The other theme that is highlighted is something that Sarah says as a voiceover as they drive onto a highway into the night. If a machine, a Terminator, can learn the value of human life, maybe we can too. I feel like in that moment, as the T-800 says his goodbye to John, Sarah regained her humanity and understood what the cyborg had learned in bonding with her son. That she relearned that too, and shook his hand as a mark of respect and gratitude for what he had done. 3 cast members from the original return, while some newcomers make their debuts. This was a twist. In the original, he was the prime antagonist as well as the titular character, whereas this time he essentially does a face turn in being sent to be John's protector after being reprogrammed. Arnold delivers what many believe is his best performance as the Terminator to date, as he still had the emotionless aspect of the original, but added some new elements of showing some humanistic traits of smiling, albeit awkwardly at first, but he got better. The Sarah we meet in this sequel is a much different woman than from what we had seen previously. Here, she is jaded, battle-weary, and bitter. Bitter for having John taken away from her, jaded and battle-weary from all the battles she had fought thus far in blowing up factories hoping to stop Skynet and Judgment Day from happening. If you thought the transformation that Sarah went through in the first movie was anything to go by, then this sequel sees an extreme transformation, as Linda went through some intense training to be as lean as she was physically. Gone are the curves that she had in the original, to the lean muscle that she sports when she's lifting her body weight up in her room at Pascadero Hospital. As mentioned just now, she is not the carefree Sarah from the beginning of the first movie. In this, she's a certified badass and takes nonsense from no one in getting what she needs for the mission.
I need clothes, food, and one of your trucks.
Hey, how about the feelings out of my teeth?
Now, Enrique.
Edward was a great casting choice to play the future leader of mankind. Like Sarah from the first movie, he goes through his own transition from being a preteen troublemaker as a juvenile delinquent with his foster parents, to taking charge as a leader in getting the T-800 to break his mother out from the mental hospital, and realizing that everything that he thought was a lie from his mother was all true. Like with his co-star from the first movie, if someone else had played this Terminator, I don't think it would be as remembered the way it has been for the last 29 years. Robert has this equally cold and menacing presence as the original T-800 gave from the first movie, but whereas that Terminator was built like a tank and not as agile, the T-1000 was more like a sports car that was quick and lethal, like a cheetah. And the evolution in this Terminator model with the T-1000, where it's able to shapeshift into different people and have his arms become stabbing weapons, show how Skynet evolved their strategy in wanting to stamp out John Connor. I really liked him. Joe made Dyson seem likeable, intelligent, innovative, and a good family man. To be able to play an engineer that was dedicated to revolutionizing the future, to then making a switch to destroy the work he had put his heart and soul into, takes a performance of conviction, as you have to be able to convey the sense of being bittersweet. You know it's for the right reasons, but at the same time, you feel gypped that you have to destroy something you've put many hours into, and Joe does this flawlessly. Michael makes his return as a cameo in a dream sequence for Sarah, warning her of what was to come now that John is the target. For the very brief appearance that Michael has in this, he delivers a decent performance and seemingly aged very little from the first movie. Knowing that this sequel would have a much larger budget at its disposal as opposed to the $6 million that the original had, would allow James Cameron to do what he could not do with the former, as the chase sequences are longer and far more intense. Two examples that come to mind are the opening chase sequence with the T-1000 in pursuit of young John with the T-800 intervening. As good as this is, there are two warts to it, with the stunt actors clearly visible when the T-800 turbo boosts from the ledge and landing and then pulling John out of harm's way before the semi-tractor crushes the moped. It doesn't ruin the sequence, but it does cheapen it. Slightly. Whereas today they would use either CG or just deepfake it to paste Eddie Furlong and Arnold's faces onto the stunt actors' faces. The second chase sequence is the last near the end, when our heroes are trying to evade the T-1000, who has now commandeered a police helicopter and makes chase with them on the highway. That culminates with the two trucks being totaled at a melting pot factory. This was also one of the first major movies to have ILM introduce the advances in computer-generated imagery. ILM had worked on The Abyss, which was also directed by Cameron. Knowing that CG would allow the movie to be able to do things that live-action practical effects could not, would aid in bringing the T-1000 to life as a liquid metal shapeshifter. The use of miniature effects were brought in to help bring Sarah's nightmare vision to life of what Judgment Day would look like, and it's very eerie how graphic the effects are with how contorted Sarah looked when hit with the blast. 29 years on, and the effects are still amazing. I would say that the score for this follow-up was echoing the effects, as given the budget of the movie was estimated between $94 million to $102 million, then suffice to say that Brad Fiedel had much more to play with, as opposed to the techno keyboard score from the former. Everything from the general score to the theme track itself felt like a massive upgrade compared to the original movie. Even the recurring metallic sound heard in the main title was done with a cast iron frying pan being hit with a hammer. If the first movie was any indication with regards to the intense pacing, then the score for this picture matches it by keeping the audience's pulse racing so that they're not given a moment to slow down. That said, one of the more somber moments is when a sad score is played as the T-800 is lowered into the pit after saying goodbye to John. It's such a tender moment where the machine understands the emotion behind John crying, and John having to say goodbye to the only father figure he's ever known. The score was bigger and longer than its predecessor, and 29 years later, it holds up in spades. The movie grossed a profit of $520.8 million against a budget of $92 to $102 million. When you adjust that for today's inflation, its takings would be $1 billion. It received widespread critical acclaim from fans and critics praising Schwarzenegger's performance, building on from what he had established from the original by taking the character of Terminator and spinning it on its head by having a machine with a heart, as opposed to the original where it was just a persistent assailant. Cameron received equal praise in expanding on what he had created back in 1984, but as mentioned earlier, because he had a much bigger budget when compared to the $6 million he had to work with for the original, which the pair joke about in an interview saying that the budget for the first movie was used for Arnold's trailer home in the sequel. It's what many fans cite as the true ending to the Terminator story, as the two Terminators were destroyed in the end, therefore stopping any remote possibility of Skynet and Judgment Day coming to fruition. But as we all know, Hollywood likes to be greedy. Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines would follow 12 years later, essentially playing out the same plotline of T2 but with Sarah Connor now deceased in the story and Skynet beginning its hostile takeover of the world. Judgment Day's story aspect would be reused 2 more times in 2015's Terminator Genesis and 2019's Terminator Dark Fate. T2 was even used as the backdrop for the Sarah Connor Chronicles, in which the story picks up 4 years after the events of Judgment Day in 1999, and sees John, Sarah, and Cameron time traveling to 2007 to stop Skynet. Terminator 2 has been enjoyed on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, and now 4K since 1991. I'm MJ Knight, and hasta la vista, I'll be back again. And in 1991, director James Cameron and star Arnold Schwarzenegger don't pause. Well, don't go too quick, but please do not be going too slow, otherwise we'll be going into blooper territory already, Mr. Knight. You have been terminated once before in the bloopers, and this time, hasta la vista, baby. I can already see Rain's like, dude, you are enjoying this way too much. There's like, you'd be having like, that's like so ham, you'd be doubling up for Mark Hamill, and there's Wynn going, smiles up to her eyebrows. You might want to get that looked at, by the way. Just saying. We see the story picking up 11 years later in 1995, and John Connor is 10 by this point, living with foster parents as he got put into their custody after Shara Connor. Do we share the Shara? And there's Linda Hamilton going, what? Share the Sarah. Share the Sarah. Almost sounds like a new car, you know. Chevrolet Motors presents Share the Sarah. Brandon's like, what? We see the story picking up 11 years later in 1995, and John is 10 by this point, living with foster... Yeah. What's up, Doc? I'm the Rabinator. I need your jacket, your motorcycle, and your next batch of carrots. Wabbit! You won't be terminated here. I could like see that the Wabbinator, and Elmer Fudd is like the Kyle Reese. It's like, so I don't know, Kyle Fudd or Elmer Reese. Whoever's watching this, please make a parody of that. Bugs Bunny is the Rabinator. While it may have been her intent to stop the creation of Skynet, I think this is where her... Mr. Knight, these bloopers are starting to become irritating. If you do that, I will have to make you rewatch TNA reviews with Ori Rakaku. Mr. Terminator, should that ever happen, please put me out of my misery. Careful what you wish for. It's either that or... oh, I don't know. You and Awesome Lydia will have to rewatch, you Keeping Up with the Kardashians from season 1. Liz will come out and try to put me in the ring and kick my ass. And Liz, we don't want to see that happen. No, no, no. Only will probably be going, oh yes, this is for all the Cartman jokes. Oh yes, oh yes. And Liz is like, honey, behave. Yes, dear. Only gets given with one hand, taken away with the other. Don't worry, Oni, I'll try and get you, I'll try to get you one of my t-shirts for Christmas. How about that? You could wear a t-shirt that says, I am a knight. Why not? Knowing that this sequel had a much bigger budget at its disposal. Okay, that's weird. But...